Hey, good morning, John. This is a demo video for you for your Phoenix Props, the Light Ben Swolo edition. Okay, I had this done. I think I wrapped it up yesterday morning, and then added your sound fonts and everything is good to go. This is installed with the Goth. I believe it's a master chassis. It's a crystal chamber chassis for sure. It's a 2-button setup. So your front switch here will be your power. Your back one here on the pillbox will be your auxiliary. I gave you Carl Chen PCB in there for your NeoPixel connector, and we'll light that up here in a second. This saber looked as though it was originally intended for an in-hilt LED system, so I did have to come through and modify it just a bit. I drilled and tapped an 832 screw hole, or I'm sorry, like a grub screw here for blade retention. All right, it originally only had one screw down below to hold a blade. It looked like there was no room to hold a pixel holder. So that's what I did there, modified that a little bit. Two different ways to operate this saber, right? One, if you don't want to look at the crystal chamber and you just want to operate the saber, what we'll do first is just come over here and unscrew the pommel. All right, so you just unscrew this. Take this off real quick, and then when you take this off, you expose this, which is your recharge port with kill key. This is an in-hilt battery system, which I'll show you the whole chassis here in a second. But for now, you've got that right there. You just come over here. You can twist your kill key, or what I prefer to do is just pull it out altogether.
Your son is gone. He was weak and foolish, like his father. So I destroyed him.
You can put the cap back on, of course, but for the sake of this demo and to save a little bit of time, I'm just going to leave it off. All right, but now the saber's on, obviously. You can come over here, we'll turn this off, and hit power. So your LED's firing up in there. This is running a 28mm Smuggler's Outpost Elite speaker. So it sounds really good. Auxiliary down here. And I gave you twist off. All right, we'll throw a blade in here. This is programmed for a full-length blade, but I'm going to use my TriStar test blade. Your kit comes with this long Allen key, and it's good for everything. It's good for locking in the blade. It's also good for taking off the handle, which I'll show you how to do here in a second. But once we got all that locked down, fires up nice. We can go to another sound font by just hitting the auxiliary.
I will give you so much more.
This is the Exegol font.
What could you give me? Everything.
A very nice smooth swing. Blaster bolt deflex is just tapping auxiliary. You'll see that better on a full-length blade. And then blade lockup is holding down auxiliary and hitting the saber. Again, easier to see on a full-length blade. And then playing your soundtrack for each font is just a long press on the power when the saber's off. And the same thing to turn it off. A few things I had to do to this hilt. Number one, I've been having problems with the Google Drive links that I've asked people to send me their sound fonts to lately. They've been missing files and the sound fonts don't work right. So rather than bother you with all that, what I did was I just went to KSith and I bought the sound fonts from him. There are some fonts I didn't own, and you can never go wrong owning fonts from KSith anyway. So I went ahead and I bought those. I downloaded them directly, put them on the saber, and now everything was working. None of the sound fonts were working correctly when I tried to get them off Google for some reason, right? But everything's working now.
Kylo Ren.
Now with KSith's crossguard font, you get 3 different variations, right? So I put all 3 variations on the saber for you. They all have unstable red blades, but they're all different unstable blades. So I use, of course, Fett's library, what everybody else does. Um, several different iterations of an unstable blade that you can choose from. So I mix it up with every font.
Kylo Ren.
Maybe a little hard to see on camera, but you will see the difference, subtle differences in person.
Kylo Ren.
If I'm not mistaken, you've got The Last Jedi, you've got The Rise of Skywalker, and you've got one more. I forget right now what it is because it's early in the morning for me.
And Solo.
So you've got those three. You've got young Solo on here, and then you have one more. I will open up this and look at your config, and I can tell you exactly what it is because I want to make sure I get it right. You've got Exegol, the Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker. Those last three are the bundle from K-Sith in that crossguard font. And then you've also got Young Solo from K-Sith. All right, so they're all on here now, and they're working fine. This one being the Young Solo is the only font that has a blue blade. Good flash on class. So that's one thing I had to do for the fonts. No big deal. So now I own those fonts too, and they're badass. So no biggie. We'll take the blade out, and we'll go over exposing the crystal chamber, and we'll talk about that a little bit. All right, put this blade up. To get to the crystal chamber, first what we'll do is we'll put the kill switch in. So we'll turn it on. Put our kill switch in the bottom, and it kills everything like it should. So it's all good there, right? How to take this handle off. You got 3 screws. You got 1, 2, and a third one here. This Allen key that we use to lock our blade in, same one that we're going to use to take these 3 screws out. I would almost suggest that you could replace these screws with something, the same threading obviously, but 3 that are a little shorter. These guys are some long boys and they don't need to be this long. All right. Totally up to you though. So we'll take these out. I got the first one out. Go ahead and take the second one out. Sometimes this is the part of the video that I would edit out, but I'll go ahead and I'll leave it in there just so that you can see how long the process takes. And I do have them cranked in there pretty good until they stopped, and then I stopped. So they didn't go quite all the way down and mash up against this piece here, but it was pretty close. So once I get all those off, this becomes very loose because it's just free floating. To get the handle off, you want to be very careful, all right? Just kind of like twist it back and forth. Take your time with it. And I'll tell you why here in a second, but once we do that, we can take this all the way off. I know that you bought this on the secondhand market. So the chassis came painted already. The paint that was applied to this chassis was very thick. And this chassis was already designed by Rick over at Goth 3 Designs to fit into the handle, at a certain tolerance, if I could say, tolerance. The paint made it to where it almost didn't want to go in at all. So I had to do a lot of sanding, although you may not be able to tell on the video. But I went through, had to do a lot of sanding on this guy, and it's still a super tight fit. And the brass also didn't like going inside of the handle, right? So I did some light sanding on there. I tried to buff it up a little bit, and that's what we've got. But this is your crystal chamber here. This is the first time that I've used these wire wraps. So they're not really wraps. They're kind of like, it's like a braided mesh for the wire path to go through, and it's pretty cool. Looks just like that, right? So that's pretty cool there. This whole thing's cool. The battery is in here. Your recharge port, your speaker is located in here. This is actually a cap that allows you to get in there, put your speaker in, and then I glue the cap on. All right, so everything's kind of glued down. There's also another cap right here. So after I get done wiring the recharge port and everything, I kind of glue that cap on. These had to be sanded quite a bit due to the paint, and then also just some fitment issues from the print. So a little bit, some modifications here, some modifications to this cap. It's all good now. What else did we do? There's another cap covering your battery, so I went ahead and I glued that on so it didn't pop off on you. And then once you get the handle off, you can take this guy and slide it right off. It comes right out the back. And then you're left with a fully exposed saber. So you've got your 2 switches right here, right? Crystal chamber. If we were to turn this on,
No prisoners.
I do have the crystal pulsing to match the blade color of the actual blade on each one. So when we turn it on, it becomes solid, but it does react to auxiliary being pressed. We go to another one.
I will give you so much more. What could you give me? Everything. Kylo Ren.
These crystals are red, but I just want you to be able to see that that chamber lights up very well.
Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren.
They each blink a little bit. They pulse or they do a heartbeat. I tried to go back and forth with them so they all weren't exactly the same, but they all do a little something when the saber's off, and they're all on a timer. So if you don't turn the saber on right away, this crystal will time out on you so you don't kill your battery. One thing that I haven't done before this demo that I'll do before I ship it out, I did have to take some material off of your chassis here as well, because it was just sticking out way too much and it wouldn't allow the handle to go on. So I'm going to take a little bit of gold rub and buff, and I'm going to try to blend that in with the rest of the chassis so it's not such an eyesore. And I'll do that before, obviously, I ship this out. All right, but that's your crystal chamber and how you get to it. So, you know, this piece goes on very easily. It's going to line up, the pillbox is going to line up with the 2 switches. You leave that on, you take your handle. The handle is what is pretty, it can be pretty snug. Just like that. So you got that groove and that handle right there, that little U groove that lines up with this switch section right here, right? So the more I'm doing it, the better it's acting as far as fitment. But you do want to just take your time, and you want to kind of rock it back and forth as you're pulling it out little by little until it just comes out, just like that. All right. You don't want to just take it and yank on it because you might break something. Pretty standard for Goth chassis. This guy is kind of glued together as you put it together. So like the rods are glued into the 2 pieces of the chamber, right? The chamber, the brass chamber is kind of glued into this PL or this SLS printed chassis material. It's all kind of glued in as you build it. That's why you don't want to just go yanking on it because you might break that. But yeah, that is basically your Ben Solo. I'm going to leave this apart for right now just so that I can go back and I can do this and I won't forget before I ship it out. I'm going to do it as soon as I'm done with this video, actually. But yeah, let me know if you got any questions, and if not, we'll get this out in the mail to you today. Thank you, and I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas.